Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I want to share some interesting information with you guys on this Palmetto PX-9, which is a 9mm AR style rifle. I found out about a week ago that it is possible for this rifle to fire out of battery, okay? And what I mean by that is basically the firing pin strikes the back of the primer on the cartridge before the bolt is fully closed and the cartridge is in the chamber. Okay, and when that happens, this is what you usually get. Okay, you can see how that case is just blown apart. Okay, so the brass case is not strong enough to hold all that pressure together. So the cartridge has to be inside the chamber in order to contain all that pressure, right? Otherwise, it blows apart like this. So what happened is about a week ago, I was over somebody's property. I was training them on this Palmetto PX-9, and they were shooting. I could see from the clear magazine that they were getting near the end of their rounds, and all of a sudden I hear a really loud bang, and I feel a lot of gas in my face, right? Because normally if somebody's shooting, right, I'm standing off to the side, slightly behind them. The gun sounded like a 308 with a muzzle brake. That's how loud it was, okay? And, standing behind them, I could feel all the gas in my face. I knew something was off. The person shooting, I don't think they even realized something had happened. They were new to guns, I didn't see them panic or anything. They just, they were like, oh, the gun doesn't work anymore. The reason why the gun didn't work is because magazine got completely blown down, floor plate got blown out. Okay, I was able to find the floor plate, which was broken. I did not recover the follower. I did find the spring. Interesting enough, I found a piece of brass that was embedded in the magazine. Right, so there's a clear ETS magazine. You can see the brass embedded over here. So that's why you always gotta have glasses when you're shooting, right? You don't want that piece of metal, which is stuck in this plastic now, going into your eyes. So always wear glasses without exception. So other than that, it was no big deal. The way the person was shooting, had one hand up here, they're like this, leaning into the gun. So all the pressure came down through the magazine, well over here, and out the ejection port. So, didn't harm. Their hands were not in any position where they could get hurt. Okay, but anyway, it's interesting that it could happen because, and the reason why I say this is because, this is an AR style rifle and an actual AR-15, which has the rotating bolt. From my understanding, and I've never been able to prove it or disprove it, but from my understanding, an AR-15 is not capable of firing out of battery. Okay, so in order for it to fire, basically the bolt has to be fully forward and rotated. And only when the bolt is fully forward and rotated is the hammer able to basically run inside of the bolt, right? Because there's a channel inside the bolt where the hammer comes in and strike the primer and ignite the cartridge. So that's my understanding of an AR-15. It is not possible for an AR, if it's working correctly, for it to fire out of battery. Now with the PX-9, this is a straight blowback system, right? So it's not gas operated. It's just like a 9mm pistol. So basically, the bolt does not rotate. It just basically just goes forward, hits the chamber, and it just stops there. Okay. So because the bolt is, it doesn't rotate, but it does look kind of similar the way the hammer, goes inside the bolt, to find the firing pin. I thought that maybe it would not be possible for this to fire out of battery, but based on this evidence, it is possible for the gun to fire out of battery. Okay, so I was considering why this might have happened. Initially, I thought that this person might have bump fired the gun, right? So I had a woman shooting, and I thought maybe the gun wasn't tight enough into her shoulder, and maybe she pulled the gun forward and she accidentally bump fired the gun. But that's still, again, I thought it was kind of strange. I didn't expect that even in those circumstances, that it would fire out of battery, because when I bump fire AR-15s intentionally, they don't fire out of battery. So I thought initially that she might have bump fired the gun. Then throughout the course of the week, different gun ranges I was at, I had people shooting this gun, and I did notice that the trigger rarely, occasionally, right, not too often, but rarely, would fire as a binary. Okay, so it would fire when they squeeze the trigger, it would fire when they release the trigger. So then I start saying, whoa, there's some type of issue with this trigger. So now, mind you, the gun, when I did have this instance with the round going off out of battery, I had cleaned the gun just a couple of days before. Okay, so from the time that I cleaned it to the time that this lady shot it, and I had this situation here. There was only about 100 or so rounds on the gun since I last cleaned it. So throughout the course of the week, I noticed on a couple of different occasions the gun fired in the binary mode, where basically it did like a 2-round burst or 3-round burst, right? Because what happened is people would squeeze the trigger, boom, release it, boom, squeeze it again, boom. So it was like boom, boom, boom. Okay, so I'm like, all these people can't be bump firing the gun. There's something up with this. So what I did is I then held the gun, and what I was doing is I would pull it back, fire it, hold the trigger down, pull it back, release it, fire. I would do this repeatedly, testing the disconnector, okay? Because I know from my prior experience that AR trigger groups are basically like 10,000 round, they basically have like a 10,000 round lifespan, okay? By 10,000 rounds, you're gonna start having some problems with your AR trigger groups. Usually they just start locking up, right? So like you're shooting, and it just locks up, and then there's nothing that you can do to the gun. It won't squeeze it, won't release it, won't do anything. In that circumstance, if you take the safety on and off, it'll usually release it, and it'll unseize it, and it'll start working. But basically, at that point, the disconnector, the trigger, the sears are starting to get chewed up or worn out. Time to change the trigger group, okay? Now, on this rifle here, this one's got about 13,000 rounds on it. I've already changed the trigger group on this gun. So it's got a fairly new trigger group in here. So I thought it was kind of strange I'd be having this problem. And like I said, I had recently cleaned this gun. So I said, okay, let's take a closer look at this gun. Took the gun apart. I took out the trigger group, okay? Which, when you're looking at it from the top, it looked pretty clean. But when I actually pulled out the trigger group, I saw that the disconnector, right, which basically sits inside of the trigger, all right, the disconnector was kind of filthy. So last time I cleaned it, right, apparently I wasn't, because usually when I open up the gun, I usually just spray down into the trigger group, and I'll run, I get a brush in there and I'll try to brush it out. But apparently that spraying that I didn't clean out the disconnector. So when I removed the disconnector out of the trigger group, I saw that it was just filthy. So I cleaned that pretty good, and I've been, since I cleaned it, I've been running this test. I have not been able to get this gun to seize up or shoot in some type of a binary fashion. So I think that was the reason why this happened, because the disconnector was dirty, and again, the disconnector, because it sits inside the trigger, you might not be able to see it very clearly. You actually have to take the trigger out. And take a closer look at it. So if this does happen to you guys, that's something that you can look at. Now, aside from that, because that's the fix. The fix was, in this case, was to, take the trigger apart and clean the disconnector. Aside from that, it is still interesting to know that this Palmetto PX-9 is capable of firing out a battery, okay? Which, again, is going to be really loud. You're going to get a lot of gas in your face. It'll blow out your magazine the way it blew out mine, and break it. But I did not know it could do it, and it can do it. So just something for you guys to be aware of. I'm kind of just putting this out there as information. So if it does happen to somebody else, people as they search the internet, they stumble across this video, they'll see that yes, it's happened to somebody else, and they'll have an idea of where to go looking in order to fix this, which is take the trigger group apart and clean it. Just take the trigger group out completely so that you can get into the disconnector and clean that, and clean inside the trigger from the inside. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative. If you're not a member of the channel, please subscribe, and by all means, please drop some comments below. I enjoy having a conversation with you guys. We'll talk to you soon.